It was Claire's third night on shift at Briar Hall Hospital, the graveyard shift. Nothing ever really happened. The building was too old, the halls too long, and the lights never bright enough. But that night, she noticed something strange on the rotation board. Room 313. She didn't remember that room ever being used. In fact, she was sure it had been closed since the fire 5 years ago. But now it was occupied, and someone had signed it in. Patient. No name. Condition, non-responsive. Claire pushed open the door to 313. The lights flickered on, reluctantly. The room smelled of smoke and antiseptic. In the bed lay a man with gauze wrapped around his entire head. Only one bloodshot eye visible. His monitor showed stable vitals, but as she leaned closer, he whispered, "Did you lock the door?" Claire turned, startled. The door had opened. She was sure she had closed it. Then she saw it. Burn marks along the frame, fresh, still smoldering. Suddenly, the ECG monitor flatlined. She looked back, but the bed was empty. The man was gone. Claire ran to the archives. She had to know who was in that room. She found a file burned at the edges. Patient, room 313. Status, DOA. Cause, self-immolation. He wasn't supposed to be alive. He had died 5 years ago, in that very room. Claire returned to 313, but the room was sealed shut, steel-welded, charred black. A nurse beside her said, confused, "That room's been closed since the fire. No one goes in there anymore." Claire looked at her clipboard. Room 313 was gone. Her shift ended in silence. But that night, in her home, she heard it again. "Did you lock the door?" Nurse Alan Reyes had only transferred to St. Dymphna Medical Center a week ago. The night shifts were long but peaceful, mostly. Until tonight. The head nurse, Marianne, gave him a strange look as she handed over the clipboard. "You'll be covering the third floor west wing tonight," she said, without eye contact. Alan furrowed his brow. "I thought that wing was closed." "It reopened," she smiled too quickly. "Just go." The elevator doors groaned open. The third floor smelled wrong, like wet earth and antiseptic. The hallway lights flickered. Every few feet, the bulbs hummed like insects in glass jars. He looked at his clipboard. Only one patient, room 309. Alan pushed open the door to room 309. The room was dark, except for the soft green glow of an old ECG monitor, still functioning. The patient lay still. She was young, maybe 19, gaunt with pale skin and long black hair that spilled over the pillow like ink. Her eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, but she wasn't blinking. "Miss, can you hear me?" Nothing. He looked at the chart hanging at the foot of the bed. No name, no date, just a single phrase. "Do not move, she remembers." Alan sat at the nurse's station just outside the room. The monitor hadn't beeped once since. Suddenly, he heard whispering, "Alan, Alan, come closer." He rushed into the room. The girl was still unmoving, except Her mouth was slightly open now. Her voice somehow came from inside his head. "We died here, Alan. They never told you, did they?" Alan staggered back. She blinked once, then again. Her eyes locked on him, unblinking, and her lips moved silently. 309 is always occupied. Alan ran to the archive room, locked behind the old pharmacy. Inside were dust-coated tapes from the hospital's closed floors. He found one labeled Wing 3 Incident, 2008, Room 309. He pushed it into the player. The footage flickered. It was the same girl, screaming, thrashing, tied to the bed. Doctors in dark suits surrounded her. One whispered, "Let her remember. The others will come." The screen turned to static. Then, his own face flashed on screen. Alan, standing beside her. But it was dated, 2008. Alan ran back upstairs, but the hospital had changed. The halls were darker now, older, water stains on the ceiling, paint flaking, and room 309's door was open. The girl was gone. The monitor was flatlined. On the wall, scrawled in blood, "You were always here." Behind him, soft footsteps approached. He turned. It was himself, in dirty scrubs, pale and grinning. "Welcome back, Alan." Everything flickered, then darkness. A new nurse arrives the next night. The clipboard reads, "Night Nurse, A. Reyes, 309. St. Agrippina's psychiatric ward was never supposed to house more than 4 patients at once. Room 5 had always been used for storage. That night, however, the night nurse, Eloisa Mendez, noticed the 5th bed was occupied. She paused at the door, clipboard in hand. The bed, empty an hour ago, now held a thin man under the sheets, eyes shut, facing the wall. She didn't recognize him. He wasn't in the system. Disquieted, there had been no new admissions, no buzz at the security door, no sound at all except the humming of fluorescent lights and the slow rhythmic creak of the IV stand swaying beside him. Eloisa stepped closer, her breath fogging slightly in the cold air. She felt it, unspoken but clear. The temperature in room 5 was colder than the rest. Her fingers brushed the call button. Dr. Marcus Vellman, a calm man in his 50s with steel-rimmed glasses and a surgeon's precision, arrived minutes later. The chart was empty, no vitals on the monitor, but the man breathed, slightly. Marcus tried speaking to him. "Sir, do you know where you are?" The man stirred, lips barely parting. "Room 5, he whispered, voice raw like gravel. That was odd. He didn't say, "I'm in room 5, just room 5, as if he was the room itself. Marcus felt a jolt run through him as the lights flickered again and a ceiling tile dropped behind him. The man opened his eyes, irises black and veined with red, no whites visible. He sat up without effort, neck stiff like a corpse. Marcus backed away instinctively, calling out for security. Marcus ordered Eloisa to pull any historical records of room 5. She hesitated. That room was sealed after the fire, almost 20 years ago. Still, she complied. The files were incomplete, pages missing, but what they found sent chills through them. A patient from 2005 who had died in room 5 after stabbing 4 staff members with IV needles. His name? Victor Nall. Victor was never removed from the hospital legally. The morgue listed his body as missing during transfer. His photo? Shaved head, sharp jaw, eyes almost entirely black, matched the man in the bed now. Impossible, Marcus muttered. He's dead. Eloisa's hands shook. She looked up slowly. Then who's lying in that bed right now? They returned to room 5. The lights were off. The other 4 patients were wide awake, sitting upright, all pointing toward the closed door. Marcus pushed the door. Inside, the room was glowing faintly red. Blood seeped through the floor vents, pooling beneath bed 5. The air smelled of burnt hair and rust. Victor now stood upright, IV tubes hanging from his limbs like tendrils. His mouth stretched into an unnatural grin, and from it came a young voice. Finally, someone stayed with me. The walls pulsed, the temperature dropped below freezing. Eloisa screamed as her reflection in the observation window twisted, her mirrored self grinning as blood ran from her nose. They never found Victor after that night. The blood vanished, the records returned to their folders, untouched. Room 5 was sealed again, this time welded shut. Marcus transferred departments. Eloisa quit 2 weeks later, but late at night, security logs would glitch, showing a 5th patient again, in bed 5, every full moon. The last nurse who tried to check the room never made it out. Her body was found in the break room freezer. Her eyes had turned fully black. Now they say the 5th bed will always fill itself. You don't assign someone to it. It chooses. The door may be closed, but it's never locked. Not really.